Imagine waking up on a freezing concrete floor, starving, only to spend that same afternoon leading a multi-million-dollar boardroom meeting. Most people see the suit and the title, but not the scars the streets left behind. Today, we're pulling back the corporate curtain to reveal how raw survival instinct built a global empire. But before we dive in, I need to ask you something. What does it take to hold on to ambition when you've gone 3 days without eating? Most leadership gurus talk about grit, about our winning mindset, about trusting the process, but none of them have ever had to choose between a bus fare and a meal. None of them know what it's like to look up at the sky at night with nothing between you and it. That was one man's reality, a man who refused to let his dreams die. And what you're about to discover will change the way you see your own limits. His name is Marcus, and this is the story of how he went from rock bottom to the top of a corporate empire without ever losing sight of who he was. Marcus was born in a small town, the son of a mother who worked as a house cleaner and a father who showed up whenever he felt like it, which wasn't often. From an early age, he learned that the world wasn't waiting for him with open arms. He learned that every meal had a price, that every pair of shoes was worn until it fell apart, and that dreaming big was a luxury his family simply couldn't afford. But Marcus dreamed anyway, quietly, secretly, in notebooks he picked up from school trash bins, sketching plans, jotting down ideas, imagining businesses he didn't even fully understand yet. There was something in him that refused to accept that this was all life had to offer, a small flame that never went out. At 17, after his mother fell ill and her medical bills swallowed what little they had left, Marcus dropped out of school to work, first as a construction assistant, then as a delivery rider, then at a small neighborhood grocery store. He never complained. He watched. Every business he came across was a lesson no classroom could teach. When Marcus was 21, his mother passed away, and with her went the only home he had ever known. Without enough income to cover rent on his own, without family to take him in, without any safety net whatsoever, Marcus found himself on the streets within a matter of weeks. The first night on the streets, he told me, is the one you never forget. Not because of the cold, not because of the hunger, and not because of the fear, but because of the silence inside you. That moment when you look at your own life and realize there is no ground left beneath your feet. It's a void that goes beyond the physical. It's existential. It's as if the entire world has simply revoked your place in it. Marcus spent those first days in a state of shock, drifting with no direction, sleeping in parks and under overpasses, eating whatever he could find, whatever someone offered, whatever was left over. He was 21 years old, and he felt as though his life was already over. But then something happened. Something he would later describe as the moment that changed everything. A moment so simple, it seems impossible that it carried so much weight. On a Tuesday morning, Marcus was sitting on a park bench, staring at nothing, when an older man sat down beside him. Nobody remarkable, a man in his 60s with a lunchbox in his hand, who had stepped out of a nearby office to eat. He looked at Marcus, not with pity, not with discomfort, but with genuine curiosity, and asked, "What do you know how to do?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. Nobody had asked him that in a very long time. Not, "What happened to you?" Not, "How did you end up here?" But, "What do you know how to do?" As if the circumstances didn't matter, as if what counted was what was on the inside, not what was visible on the outside. And Marcus started talking. He talked about the grocery stores he'd worked in and what he'd learned about how products move. He talked about the deliveries and what he'd noticed about logistics. He talked about construction sites and what he'd understood about time management and resources. He talked without stopping, as if that one question had opened a floodgate inside him. The man listened to everything.
When Marcus finished, he said only one thing: "You think like a businessman. You just don't have the context yet." That sentence branded itself into Marcus like a tattoo on his soul. You think like a businessman. You just don't have the context yet.
In the days that followed, something shifted in the way Marcus woke up each morning. The cold, the hunger, the circumstances, all of it was exactly the same. But the way he looked at it all had changed completely. He stopped seeing himself as someone who had lost everything, and he started seeing himself as someone who hadn't built anything yet, but who was going to. Marcus began using every hour of every day differently. Early each morning, before libraries opened, he'd wait outside. The moment they unlocked the doors, he'd go in and read everything he could get his hands on. Books on business, finance, human behavior, and the history of companies. He had no notebook, so he memorized. He repeated things out loud in a low voice, as if recording them directly into his own mind. In the afternoons, he observed. He'd stand outside restaurants, shops, and office buildings, watching the flow of people, noting the peak hours, studying the patterns of customers and employees. He was building a mental database of how businesses actually work. And at night, he planned. Lying wherever he could find to rest, he would mentally construct the businesses he was going to build one day. Every detail, every product, every customer, every obstacle, and how he would overcome it. It was work, the only kind of work available to him at that moment, and he treated it as seriously as if he were being paid by the hour. 3 months after ending up on the streets, Marcus got his first real shot at a new beginning. Through a social organization that offered professional retraining, he enrolled in a sales training program. He slept in the shelter the organization provided, woke up at 5 in the morning, studied, practiced, and by the end of the program, he had finished first in his class. The first company that hired him was small, a local cleaning products distributor with a team of 6 and a modest revenue. Marcus came in as an outside sales rep, the most entry-level position there was. But he didn't walk through that door thinking like a salesperson. He walked in thinking like an owner. Within 6 months, he had doubled the company's client base. Within a year, he had built a sales process from scratch that the company had never had. Within 18 months, the owner pulled him into a room and said, "I don't know exactly what you are, but I know you're not just a salesperson. What do you want here?" Marcus wanted to learn everything, and the owner let him. Marcus started sitting in on financial meetings, purchasing decisions, supplier negotiations. He absorbed in 2 years what most professionals take a decade to learn. But the moment came when he knew it was time to leave. There was a business inside him waiting to be born, and he knew that if he stayed too long in that comfort zone, fear would grow right alongside the comfort. And one day he'd look back and realize he had let his dreams die in a different way than in the gutter, but just as permanently. With 2 years' worth of savings, Marcus opened a small sales consultancy. 2 clients in the first month, 5 by the third, 12 by the 6th. It was hard work, difficult meetings, demanding clients, long nights, but it was his. Every decision, every mistake, every win was his. And here is the moment that separates Marcus from the majority of people who try to build something and quit at the first serious obstacle. In the 2nd year of the consultancy, one of his biggest clients abruptly canceled their contract, taking with them nearly 40% of his monthly revenue. In 1 week, Marcus went from a stable operation to a full-blown financial crisis. Payroll to meet, office rent due, bills piling up. Most people who have lived through what Marcus lived through on the streets, the moment they feel the ground shake like that, they collapse. The trauma of having lost everything once is powerful. The fear of losing it all again is even more powerful. But Marcus had something most people don't. He had already survived the worst. He had already slept on concrete, already gone 3 days without eating, already had absolutely nothing.
and he had made it through. So when the crisis came knocking on the door of his company, he didn't panic. He went into problem-solving mode. He called every remaining client and deepened those relationships. He pursued new contracts with the kind of intensity that only someone who has truly lost everything can summon. He restructured costs without laying off a single employee because he knew what it felt like to be without work, and he wasn't willing to put anyone in that position by choice. Within 4 months, the company had not only recovered, but had grown. And that crisis became the turning point that brought in the biggest clients Marcus had ever had. Because word got out. The way he had managed that turbulence caught the attention of major players. In the years that followed, the consultancy became a technology company focused on sales optimization. The technology company became a group with operations across 4 countries. The group with operations across 4 countries became a name that now appears on lists of the most innovative companies in the market.
And Marcus, the boy who slept in a cardboard box, who went hungry, who spent 3 days without eating, became the CEO of an empire he built from zero, with his own 2 hands, from absolutely nothing. But here is the part of the story that most headlines never tell, and which, in my opinion, is the most important part of all. Marcus didn't change who he was to get where he got. He didn't become a different person. He didn't forget where he came from. Quite the opposite. Every boardroom he walks into, he thinks of that park bench. Every difficult decision he faces, he applies the same logic he used to survive on the streets. What is essential, what is unnecessary, and what truly matters. He runs a program inside his company that hires exclusively from communities facing social vulnerability, providing training, mentorship, and a real path to growth. Not as charity, as strategy, because he knows from lived experience that inside every person the world has written off, there may be a talent the world hasn't discovered yet. And when someone asked Marcus what the secret was, what the decisive moment was, what the turning point was, he always answers the same way. He says, "There was no turning point. It was a decision I made every single day for years. The decision not to let my circumstances define my destiny, to be the author of my own story, not a character in the story the world wrote for me." That is what separates those who make it from those who give up along the way. The daily, stubborn, sometimes exhausting decision to keep writing your own life, even when everything around you says you don't have the right to. Marcus had slept on concrete. He had gone hungry. He had lost his mother, his home, and for a moment had nearly lost himself. But he never lost the question that echoed inside him, even on the darkest days. What if I make it? What if, in spite of everything, I actually make it? That question was more powerful than any obstacle the world ever put in front of him.
And now I'll hand that question back to you, but from a different angle. It's not about what it takes to hold on to ambition when everything is falling apart. The real question is this: are you letting your current circumstances decide what you believe is possible for you? Because wherever you are today, whatever that looks like, it is never your final destination. It's just the chapter you're in right now. If Marcus's story moved you, if you recognized yourself somewhere in it, if it lit something inside you that had gone quiet, I'm asking you to do one simple thing. Subscribe to this channel right now. Every week, there are stories like this one, real stories about real people who decided to be bigger than their circumstances. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell, and I'll see you in the next video, because the story that matters most is still being written, and it's yours.